This is an ITG special presentation.
On this edition of ITG, we explore the role that misdirection and deception play in Coach Rod's system, how his offenses so often zig at the exact moment the defense expects them to zag. We break it all down on this episode of In the Gun.
I'm kind of a football junkie. I try to learn something every day.
This play is a classic zone read out of a spread formation.
This offense, the origination of it was actually the run and shoot.
You fly around and play fast.
His passer rating set an NCAA record.
I'll show you who's in command. Woody Densler.
To try to stretch the field both horizontally and vertically.
Slayton inside the 20, he's gone. Touchdown, West Virginia.
You'll be mentally and physically tougher than anybody you play, or you won't be playing.
Leaps for the touchdown. The nation's leading rusher.
That's tempo in the run game. That's Rich Rodriguez.
To the house. And last, and most importantly, be physical. Be physical.
West Virginia, their red zone offense this year, 43 for 50 with 35 touchdowns. At the 13. Second down and 12. End around coming. It's Renaud who scored, and he scored again.
For my money, misdirection is one of the most criminally underrated parts of football. Many of my favorite plays have been those that weaponize the defense's own aggressiveness against it. Why? Because I grew up in West Virginia. I've spent most of my life as an underdog, and an argument can be made that deception is an underdog's best friend. History suggests that's true on the battlefield, in the boardroom, and on the gridiron. Welcome to it, folks. I'm Jed Drenning, and you are In the Gun. This episode of ITG is brought to you by Bet Online. The game starts here. With the dog days of summer around the corner and Independence Day top of mind right now, why not travel back in time to the dawn of our republic to kick off this episode? In the American Revolution, much of the war was in fact determined by the Continental Army going toe-to-toe versus the British Empire, European warfare style, on open battlefields from Trenton to Yorktown. But while the regular army did often, though not always, abide by the rules, much of the Continental militia did not. To lead these bands of ragtag militia, George Washington recruited key privateers who recognized the need to wage a different kind of war.
Washington promotes a new breed of aggressive commander, prepared to rip up the rule book.
What the colonists really fought was a guerrilla war.
The militia would call on strategies of misdirection, like sabotage and hit and run. They would conduct ambushes and raids, playing to the advantage of their mobility against a larger, less mobile army. They would fire at the British while hidden behind rocks and trees, and they would target enemy officers at the outset of battle to create chaos.
Colonel, you must know that in civilized warfare, officers in the field must not be accorded inappropriate levels of hostile attention.
To your mind, what are appropriate levels of hostile attention?
Oh, Colonel, imagine the utter chaos that would follow from leaderless armies having at each other.
The revolution wasn't entirely decided by these guerrilla tactics, but such insurgent methods did play a critical role. In winning their independence from Britain, American patriots proved that sleight of hand and smoke and mirrors could help tilt things their way against the mightiest empire on the globe in the 1700s. Now here we are nearly 250 years later, and smoke and mirrors can tilt things an offense's way against the most dominant defenses in college football. It's hard to imagine these days, as you can't turn a football game on at any level without seeing a steady diet of 3 and 4 receiver sets and a quarterback in the shotgun, but for years I was forced into the role of spread offense apologist. It wasn't easy. Long before spread systems became more broadly accepted, then ultimately took over the game as the mainstream, I found myself constantly debating its merits with the old-school football purists in my life, those that thought 3 plays in a cloud of dust from a formation that could fit in a phone booth was the best way to play the game. See, they would always scoff when I tried to tell them that the spread, not things like the Notre Dame box or the Maryland I, was the most American offense ever created. But my logic was pretty simple. Spread concepts, much like the folks who upended the British Empire 2.5 centuries ago, are fiercely resourceful, able to quickly find ways to outwit an opponent. Those old-school offenses, on the other hand, deployed old-school strategies. Their compact, no-nonsense alignments were designed to announce to the world, "Here we come," as they directly engaged defenses in battles of will. In other words, they represented the football version of 18th century British military doctrine, a rigid philosophy grounded in the linear tactics of warfare, which dictated that ranks of soldiers aligned in close-order formations fire volleys, such an intense and concentrated volume of volleys that they would overwhelm the enemy. This was the polar opposite of the covert approach to battle taken by the colonial militia during the American Revolution. They used trickery and subterfuge to mitigate the advantages of a stronger opponent. Don't doubt for a second that if our founding fathers had an offensive choice, it damn sure would have been the spread. And oh, by the way, yeah, it really is kind of nuts what AI can do these days. So anyway, if anyone tries to tell you that the spread isn't the most American offense in this great game, remind them that a spread philosophy, hallmarked by misdirection and deceptive tactics, was used to beat both Georgia and King George. The spread offense is by its very nature deceptive, which is what made Rich Rodriguez gravitate toward it 30-plus years ago when he was trying to build an overmatched Glenville State program into prominence in the West Virginia Conference. He knew he couldn't afford to be conventional. From installing the odd stack defense at West Virginia way back in 2002 and the rugby punt in the mid-2000s, pushing the envelope with concepts regarded as too risky by his coaching peers, has always been Rich's nature, not just as a play caller, but as a head coach. The irony is, Coach Rod has long since become known best for perhaps one of the most primal things in football, the knockout punch his ground game can deliver. I've discussed in previous episodes Coach Rod's obvious appetite for pulverizing a defense on the ground, even during the peak of our run-and-shoot passing days in Glenville. But make no mistake about it, misdirection is part of his DNA as a play caller, and that's what makes the running game in his system so incredibly difficult to defend. It's all baked in. Any boxer will tell you that knockout punches are rarely the result of simply overpowering someone. Instead, they typically involve a skillful setup. Repetition is often used to achieve this. If a boxer throws enough jabs to the body, for example, an opponent will naturally move into a crouch to defend it, sometimes creating an opening to come back at them with something higher and harder to put them on the canvas. In similar fashion, on the football field, if you show full flow to one side enough, the defense will eventually fire in that direction to contain it, setting the stage to use that over pursuit against them with some kind of reverse action. When exactly in the game to pull the trigger on such gadgetry has always been something Rich has had a good feel for. Here in a minute, we're going to revisit West Virginia's 2006 Sugar Bowl win over SEC champion Georgia to better explain what all this deception talk means. And you're right, I didn't have to say SEC champ, but it's always fun to do so when talking about that game. And talk about that game is exactly what we're going to do in a few seconds. But first, if you enjoy the show, please remember to hit the like button and subscribe. The vast majority of our viewers are not subscribed, so do us a big favor and hit that sub button because it really helps us out. And remember to do business with those who are doing business with ITG. When you think of In the Gun, we want you to think of folks like our friend J.R. Toothman and his fine staff at Toothman Ford in Grafton, because cars cost less in Grafton. Remember to check out Fortis and our dear pal Rick Lewis, For roof performance and financial certainty guaranteed, be sure to visit fortis.us.com. And of course, no ITG roll call is complete without Tim Johnston and the good folks at Johnston Equipment. Be sure to visit them on Route 33 between Weston and Buchanan or online at johnstoneq.com. Now, on to the Georgia Dome for that 2006 Sugar Bowl as we explore the anatomy of a misdirection play, including, most importantly, how to recognize when a defense is ready to get stung by one. Let's begin here with West Virginia's third play from scrimmage to start the game. Pat White in the gun with our buddy, the runaway beer truck, to his left. The Mountaineers offering up twins to the boundary and an attached tight end to the field against Georgia's even front defense. WVU is going to go full flow left, with Owen serving as Pat's lead blocker to the perimeter. But what I notice most here is the reaction of the Georgia linebackers, especially the Sam and the Mike. At the first hint of sweep action, they explode full throttle to that side to try and corral it. Make a quick mental note of that because it's going to come back up in a minute. One more thing on this play worth doubling back to see: the blocks by Owen to Pat's left and right tackle Garen Justice, chopping down Georgia linebacker Danny Verdun-Wheeler and defensive tackle Kedrick Golston like rotten oak trees. If you're listening to this show on audio, do yourself a favor and check it out on YouTube when you get a chance. 537 pounds worth of Georgia defenders toppling so abruptly to the turf is quite a visual. The aggressiveness of the Georgia linebackers was attention-worthy on that play, but this next snap we're going to discuss on West Virginia's second possession is even more so. This time, on a 1st and 10, West Virginia operates out of the gun in a 10 personnel look with twins set to each side. Pat White awaits the snap with Steve Slayton to his left against Willie Martinez's even front defense. The Mountaineers attack here with an option to the wide side. Pat secures the ball and takes off downhill toward the outside shoulder of his left tackle, with Slayton trailing as the pitchman, maintaining a 5-by-2 relationship with his quarterback, 5 yards behind him and 2 yards outside of him. The Bulldogs do a nice job of defending this, with the Sam linebacker out leveraging the block by the slot, helping secure the pitch and preventing Pat from expanding any further. But again, one of the things that stands out here is the incredibly aggressive posture of the Georgia linebackers. The Bulldogs don't know it yet, but this is going to cost them just a few minutes later. Which brings us again to Darius Raynaud's reverse for the touchdown on West Virginia's third possession. Out of a 20 personnel Liz Max look from the gun, with Steve to Pat's left and Owen to his right, Georgia shows 6 in the box and brings safety Greg Blue creeping down in support as well when West Virginia starts into its cadence. White secures the snap and takes off to his left, showing another option look very similar to the one the Bulldogs have already seen multiple times. Right on cue, all 3 Georgia linebackers react impulsively to the play side in an effort to bottle up the option. But with a level of deception that would make the Continental Militia proud, WVU slot Darius Raynaud cuts full steam back across the grain as White, in a dead sprint to the perimeter, casually flips the ball to him. Behind a nasty crack block by wideout Dwayne Thompson on Blue, Raynaud has clear sailing to the end zone as Garen Justice mops up what remains of the Georgia defense to that side. The call turned out to be the perfect antidote administered at the perfect time to offset an aggressive group of Georgia linebackers who were tired of getting beat to the edge all night by West Virginia's speed.
I love it when a plan comes together.
Snap comes back, and they're going to run a reverse. Here comes Darius Raynaud. He's to the 10, to the 5, end zone, touchdown! Darius Raynaud, his second of the night, and West Virginia leads it 20-0 on a 13-yard reverse to Darius Raynaud. 20-0 Mountaineers with 4:27 to go in the quarter.
In the early days of the offense at Glenville, we had a very similar reverse that we would run off of our outside zone action from under center, which we very rarely lined up in. We called it 36 and 37-0 because the guard pulled on an O block to lead the way front side. I'd take a reach step and fake the stretch handoff to the fullback to help influence the backers, then I'd simply flip the football to Chris George, our strong side slot, who was bursting back the other way like Darius Renaud did against Georgia. Following the guard into the open field backside, Chris would break into the second level and run for days. Rich would dial this up after we'd had enough success running 36 and 37, the play side zone play, the base play, to draw the flow of the defense that way. Another hidden advantage to gashing a defense on misdirection plays like this, such plays render defenders more hesitant against your base calls, as they're now less inclined to so quickly trust their eyes and launch immediately in pursuit. It fosters indecision in the defense. The next time West Virginia attacked the perimeter following that Renaud touchdown on the reverse, the Georgia linebackers reacted like a dog toting its head at a squeak toy. Deception can be packaged a lot of ways. We're going to take a look at some of the other wrinkles Rich has used through the years to punish defenses for their aggressiveness. More precisely, what kind of tricks he's inclined to roll out when facing a defense that might be more talented than his guys are. Stick around, because that's all coming up right after this break. You are in the gun.
For nearly 20 years, Fortis has been the nation's leader in providing guaranteed roof performance programs for commercial buildings. Fortis offers roof performance solutions that feature extensive initial and ongoing reconditioning for commercial buildings as an alternative to traditional replacement, with long-term performance guarantees that are backed by global leader Lloyd's of London. Fortis offers a comprehensive range of roof performance management programs that provide financial security, extend the life of our customers' roofs, and make a significant impact on ROI. Fortis is currently improving performance and increasing ROI for customers at more than 4,800 locations, with more than 140 million square feet protected, including many Fortune 500 companies that have turned to Fortis to save money, gain financial certainty, and extend the life of their existing roofs. Fortis has helped customers save more than $520 million in capital roof replacement costs for an average ROI of over 250%. To learn more, visit fortis.us.com. Fortis, roof performance and financial certainty guaranteed.
You're listening to Mountaineer Football Talk.
ITG.
Nobody supports the blue and gold Mountaineers like Toothman Ford. With over 20 NIL deals and counting, Toothman Ford continues to rally behind our student athletes. And it's time we rally and support the dealer that supports the Mountaineers. Not only does Toothman Ford offer the best prices in the state on pre-owned, their never over MSRP campaign on new Fords guaranteed to save you thousands. Drive with pride all season long, knowing you're supporting the dealer that fuels our Mountaineers. Toothman Ford, where cars cost less, in Grafton and at toothmanford.com.
At Coyote, we're going to treat you like dirt, because we hold dirt in the highest regard. We're honored to find it under our fingernails. It keeps us humble, honest. If you know us, you know getting treated like dirt means getting treated with respect. Coyote, we dig dirt.
Now at Johnston Equipment, get 0% financing or a free loader with low-rate financing on select Coyote models in stock.
Come check out our new Coyotes at Johnston Equipment.
We're not going to be standing around and holding hands and singing Kumbaya. That's like huddles. When we get in a huddle, it's a trick play. You know, who wants to see a bunch of fat guys hold hands, right?
You know, Rich was only half kidding there. But welcome back. Misdirection can come in many forms, especially if you're going to count the huddle as one of those forms. But as we've discussed, Coach Rod's system was originally developed from an offensive template, the run and shoot, that was almost exclusively predicated on misdirection, deceiving a defense with distractions and shiny objects to maximize space and create matchups that favored the offense. Of course, the run and shoot did it by throwing the football. And as we've talked about, especially in part 3 of this series, the ground game episode, Rich has expanded that philosophy through the years in a bunch of different creative ways to include what he does in the run game. And here we are. An offense that uses tempo and deception to get a defense, oftentimes even a more talented defense, on their heels. Then that offense starts pounding the hell out of them when they're still trying to adjust. Kind of like those militia tactics that caught superior British forces not looking way back when. You can try and inventory all the examples of this produced by Rich's offense through the years, but the list really is too long to keep up with. At the peak of the Miami Empire, the Hurricanes won 46 of their final 50 games as a member of the Big East. Much of that success was driven by star-studded defenses teaming with NFL talent. But during that 5-year stretch of dominance, no team rushed for more yards against the Canes than the 363 amassed by West Virginia in Morgantown when Coach Rod's Mountaineers flirted with an upset. In this 2006 Sugar Bowl that we've been talking about, West Virginia faced a smothering Georgia rush defense that had just held LSU in the SEC championship game to 2.1 yards per carry. The Mountaineers shredded the Dogs' defense for 382 yards on the ground at a clip of 6.1 yards per carry. And just a handful of years ago, with Rich as the OC, Ole Miss faced an LSU team that entered the game with the nation's 13th ranked rush defense, allowing just 101 yards per game. But the tempo and misdirection of the Ole Miss run game gave the Tigers D all it could handle with over 400 yards rushing. There really are too many instances of these things happening over the arc of time. Coach Rod's offenses doing things to elite defenses that nobody else seems able to do to try and catalog all of them. But when Rich takes things up a notch with true misdirection or even a touch of gadgetry and adds another layer of smoke and mirrors to an offense that already makes a living on an every down basis by getting a defense to see ghosts, things can really get fun. We saw in those Sugar Bowl clips earlier what can happen to a defense when it dials up its aggression a few more decibels to try and corral a critical element of the run game. But what about misdirection in the passing game? How does Coach Rod take advantage of his run game success to punish defenses through the air? Let's flesh the whole pattern out for you because we're going to work our way up to some examples here in a few minutes. The thread that all deceptive plays share is they're designed off a paired play. In other words, they serve as a twist to a play or a concept the offense uses with enough regularity to induce muscle memory from the defense. Think of the most commonly known deceptive play in football, the old school flea flicker. When an offense pounds the ball between the tackles long enough, the defense eventually drops defenders into the box to help against the run. So the offense responds by handing the ball to the back, who attacks the line to sell the run, but stops on a dime, flips the ball back to the quarterback, who then takes a deep shot to a receiver who is armed with the chance to slip behind a distracted defensive back.
And Bledsoe with a handoff to Jones, flip back to Bledsoe on a flea flicker, deep down the middle for Terry Glenn, 25, 15, touchdown, flea flicker.
Look, this basic concept of deception has been around forever. The first time that a flea flicker was run was 100 years ago, all the way back in 1925 by Illinois with Red Grange. Yeah, the Galloping Ghost. For those scoring at home, the flea flicker actually got its name from Grange's coach at Illinois, Bob Zupke, who intended the phrase to evoke, quote, the quick flicking action of a dog getting rid of its fleas. Now, I have to admit, I've seen dogs bite fleas, chew fleas, scratch their fleas like crazy, but I've never seen a dog actually flick a flea.
Flick it right in the middle there.
But, all right, Coach Zupke, you came up with a play, you can name it whatever you want. See, getting drawn so easily into rabbit holes like this is one reason it takes me so long to do a video. But I digress. The strategy of deception and paired plays is a pretty simple one. The goal is to get defenders' eyes trained to expect one thing, then suddenly sting them with a concept that breaks that tendency. Much of the success or failure of such plays hinges on the timing of when they're called. Dial them up too early, and defenders might not be conditioned enough just yet to overreact and fall prey. But much of it comes back to building these concepts off a play you'll show the defense with enough repetition that they can be drawn into the trap. As we've discussed on here before, one of the staples of Coach Rod's offenses through the years has been an assortment of backside reads by the quarterback made out of the shotgun in the run game. Whether it's a zone read, a counter read, or a read sweep, or some other variation, they all involve the quarterback sticking the ball in the belly of the back next to him to create a mesh as the runner crosses his face, then fixing his eyes on a defensive read key. Irrespective of who ends up with the ball, these plays invariably end up with the quarterback heading in one direction and the running back heading in another. That's the element of the play that makes them all look similar to the defense. These plays are so regularly run by Rich's offense that it stands to reason he has misdirection plays paired with them to attack a defense that he feels is pursuing too aggressively. So, Let's explore 3 times of the many that Rich has taken this approach to hurt a defense by throwing the football. In effect, the same play with minor wrinkles in the formation, set up by similar elements of the run game, deployed 3 times at different stops and at different times years apart. Why so similar? Because the general principles of his rushing attack used to fool the defense have held consistent for years. One of the reasons his offenses are so efficient when executing these. Something else to notice with the 3 plays we'll be reviewing for this next breakdown, all of them in these examples were called against opponents that were heavily favored. In other words, these were defenses that almost certainly wielded some kind of physical advantage over Rich's offense in the matchup. More specifically, defenses that likely had more speed than the offense. And the best way to neutralize that speed advantage? Burn their over pursuit with a few well-crafted misdirection plays. Distractions, it's been said, can be the ultimate equalizer. First, let's jump back to 2003 and visit the Orange Bowl, where West Virginia was taking on Sean Taylor and number 2 ranked Miami. Yes, the Quincy Wilson game, but that's not the focus here. The Mountaineers entered the matchup bent on running the football and had some early success in doing so. And not that the Hurricane defense was swarming to the ball. West Virginia has the ball on the left hash early in a scoreless game. One of the first things you notice is a lot of second and third level movement by the Miami defense. Now take note of some of the key elements you're going to see on this play, because you'll notice they resurface again years apart, years later in Rich's system. Rasheed Marshall takes the snap and puts the football in the belly of KJ Harris. To the Canes, this looks a lot like the zone read they've seen WVU execute so many times, or maybe even a counter read as the backside guard appears to be pulling to the same side Rasheed is moving. It's all happening in a blink. Miami's Mike Backer is suckered in completely, and the play action freezes Will Backer, DJ Williams, just enough to cost him, as the speedy KJ Harris comes out of the fake and slips up the sidelines with a head start on Williams. The pulling guard kicks out the edge pressure just enough to help Rasheed flip his hips and launch a perfectly placed ball back to Harris up the sidelines, who races for 84 yards. This connection from Rasheed to KJ still stands as the longest non-touchdown pass play in WVU school history. Next, we head out to the Pacific Northwest to Autzen Stadium, where Coach Rod's Arizona Wildcats were taking on another number 2 ranked team, the Oregon Ducks, on a 2014 Thursday night in Eugene. Despite being a 24-point underdog, Zona was clinging to a 3-point lead late in the third quarter, and it crossed into Oregon territory at the 35. With the ball on the left hash, the Wildcats lined up in the shotgun with twins to each side. Just like Rasheed Marshall in Miami a decade earlier, Arizona quarterback Anu Solomon secured the snap and placed the ball in the breadbasket of true freshman running back Nick Wilson. Solomon pulled the ball and lost ground as he moved to his right, where he got the help of a pulling guard who slowed down 2 defenders. There's that pulling guard again. Both of the Ducks' inside backers were neutralized by this misdirection. Once again, we see Rich using the defense's own aggression against it. Wilson, meanwhile, came out of the fake and snuck back wide left of the formation, where nary an Oregon defender was to be found. He burst up the sidelines and Solomon hit him in stride. Wilson busted through a single tackle attempt by a Ducks defensive back, then sprinted into the end zone, helping pace Arizona's stunning upset of Oregon. Finally, let's move our focus down to the Bayou State, where Liberty in 2021, led by quarterback Malik Willis, waltzed into Louisiana Monroe as a 29-point favorite. With the ball on the left hash early in the third quarter, ULM is in the red zone, trailing 14-0, and offers up a trips right to the field with an attached tight end. Offensive coordinator Rich Rodriguez reaches into his magic bag for a sprinkle of deception. Freshman quarterback Chandler Rogers takes the snap in the gun and, you guessed it, puts the ball in the belly of running back Andrew Henry. When Rogers pulls the ball out of the mesh, the quarterback and the flow of the play carry to the right. From the vantage point of the Liberty defense, it looks a lot like the reads the QB has been making in the run game all night. If not, then maybe even a play-action pass flooding the right side of the field, as the QB has started to move that way and all of his targets are working upfield to that side as well. All of them, that is, except for one. Running back Henry came out of the fake and snuck into the backside flat, working his way wide open up the rail. Just as we saw against Miami and Oregon, the left guard pulls to help protect the quarterback. This time, however, the guard whiffs on the edge as two defenders spill in past him. But in doing so, just enough interference is created to buy Rodgers the extra beat he needs to set up and loft the ball to a wide open Henry, who strolls into the end zone as the nearest defender might as well have been in Shreveport. One of the Liberty linebackers ostensibly overreacted to the play fake and blew a gasket. The only Flames who might have been in position to defend the throw were the Willbacker, who instead bit on the run fake, then dropped to hand check a crossing route to the right, and the boundary safety, who instead kicked off the hash to chase down his man coverage responsibility, the Monroe tight end, who was moving full speed to the opposite side of the field. A little bit of well-timed misdirection that produced an easy touchdown and got things rolling for a Monroe comeback as the Warhawks shocked Liberty 31-28 in one of the biggest upsets of the 2021 college football season. In a matchup such as this one, when you're forced to scratch and claw for every yard against a superior defense, deception like this is worth its weight in gold bullion. Okay, it's almost time to put a pin in this, but we certainly can't do an entire show on misdirection and deceptive play calls without including the standard bearer, the greatest sleight of hand of Rich's head coaching career. It had everything: keen game planning, solid design, and enough repetition to pull the Georgia Bulldogs into the trap. And yes, I think you see where I'm going with this. It was dialed up at the perfect time and set up by something so incredibly basic that Georgia never saw it coming. So simple, yet so deceptive, and it resulted in the most celebrated 10-yard run in West Virginia football history.
Lindsey, the snapper, sends the ball back, and Brady is going to fake it. Brady's running. Brady, first down, West Virginia. Phil Brady on a fake punt ran the football inside the 40 of Georgia, and the Mountaineers, with 1:38 to go in the game and a 3-point lead, will have a first down and 10 at the Bulldogs' 38-yard line. Oh, my goodness gracious.
Hats off to friend of the program, Phil Brady, fake punter extraordinaire. And if you've watched our show the last couple off seasons, you know Phil can play a pretty mean game of Mountaineer football trivia too.
It was moonshine. Phil Brady, champion.
All right, that's it for this one. But hit that subscribe button and be on alert, because there's still one more installment left in this series on Coach Rod's Spread. Heck, for that matter, make sure that you go back and watch the first 3 installments of this series as well. Plus, there'll be tons of other West Virginia football topics to chew on as the summer moves along. After all, camp will be here before you can say spot the ball. In the meantime, have a great holiday weekend. God bless America, and remember to be an ear and tell an ear about your new favorite WVU football podcast. For Wes Uhler, the Runaway Beer Truck, Owen Schmitt, and Schuyler Callihan, I'm Jed Drenning. You've been In the Gun.
The fun doesn't have to stop here.
Be sure to hit subscribe and never miss an episode.
Join us again next time.
Until then,
tell an ear to tell an ear about your new favorite WVU football podcast.
This mission is over. It's over.